Your sister is simply more polished for management, Natalie, my mother had said, sliding a single-page memo across her mahogany desk while my sister sat beside her with that particular smirk that only comes from watching someone else's dream get demolished in real time. I'd stared at the memo announcing that Claire, my younger sister, my colleague, my competition, had been promoted to general manager of all 3 Rosewood Kitchen locations, while I remained in my current position of senior manager of operations. Not even a lateral move. Just, you're staying where you are, and your sister is moving up. Just like that. 14 hours later, I emailed my resignation letter and started drafting a business plan that would systematically dismantle everything my family had built. My mother owned 3 restaurants. Actually, let me correct that. My mother owned 3 restaurants that had been built on the backs of my grandfather's culinary reputation, my father's business infrastructure, and my own 16 years of working 80-hour weeks building operational systems that made those restaurants profitable. Rosewood Kitchen started in 1985. My grandfather was a chef, a legitimately exceptional chef, who opened a single location in Portland and developed a loyal following through sheer excellence and consistency. By the time I was born in 1987, we had 2 locations. By the time I turned 16, my mother had expanded to 3. By the time I was 25 and graduated from the University of Oregon with a degree in hospitality management and business strategy, we were operating as a small empire. My mother had inherited the business in 1998 when my grandfather died. She'd brought in a business manager to handle the operations. But when I graduated, she made a decision that seemed wonderful at the time. She asked me to join the company as an operations coordinator, giving me the chance to learn the business from the inside and eventually take over management. I'd been thrilled. For 8 years, I'd poured everything into Rosewood Kitchen. I'd redesigned the supply chain and cut food costs by 20%. I'd implemented a new inventory management system that eliminated waste and improved profitability. I'd trained management teams, developed staff retention programs, and increased employee satisfaction scores by 45%. I'd built processes that made the restaurants run smoothly even when my mother was traveling or distracted or simply not interested in the day-to-day operations. My sister, Clare, had graduated from Stanford with an MBA 5 years after me. She moved back to Portland, and my mother, delighted to have her Ivy League-educated daughter home, had given her a position as assistant manager at the flagship location, a position that should have come with a 3-year learning curve but which my mother treated as a coronation. Claire was smart. I won't say she wasn't. She'd learned the business quickly. She'd made connections with investors and suppliers. She'd developed relationships with customers. She'd done all the things you're supposed to do when you're being groomed for succession. But she'd also taken credit for my work. Repeatedly. Constantly. With a casual ease that suggested she didn't even realize she was doing it. Claire came up with this new inventory system, my mother had bragged to her friends, while I stood there knowing I'd spent 3 weeks developing the specifications. She's really got a head for operations. We implemented a new staff retention program, Claire had mentioned in a team meeting. While I'd been the one conducting the research, developing the framework, and training the management team to execute it. And I'd said nothing. Because family. Because you don't publicly contradict your sister. Because you believe that eventually, your work will speak for itself. Except it didn't. Because the person speaking for my work was my sister. The promotion meeting had been the breaking point. My mother had called both of us into her office. I assumed she was announcing my promotion to general manager, a position that had been open for 18 months and for which I was obviously qualified. I had a decade of experience at this company. I'd built the systems. I understood every element of the operation. I've made a decision about the general manager position, my mother had said, and I'd felt my heart actually start to race with anticipation. Claire is going to take it, she'd continued, and I'd heard the rest of it as though through water, more polished, better relationships with investors, broader perspective, MBA from a prestigious school. The only thing that had penetrated was, your sister. Over you. Your younger sister, who'd been here for 5 years, is being promoted over you. Your mother has chosen her. Claire had actually smirked. Just a quick, triumphant flash of a smile that suggested she'd known this was coming. That she'd expected it. That she believed this entire time that she was more deserving than me. Nothing personal, dear, my mother had added, using the exact phrase that made it absolutely personal. I just think Claire is better positioned for the role. You can stay in operations, there's still so much you can contribute there. I'd nodded. I'd stood up. I'd said, thank you for letting me know. And 14 hours later, after spending the night in my apartment reviewing everything I'd accomplished at Rosewood, I'd sent the resignation email. Starting a restaurant isn't difficult if you understand operations, financing, supply chains, and customer relationships. I understood all 4. I'd spent the next 3 weeks analyzing the market. Portland's restaurant scene was competitive but not saturated. There was absolutely room for a new concept. I'd identified 3 potential locations, analyzed foot traffic, reviewed comparable rents, and calculated profitability projections. By month 2, I had a business partner, David Chen, a software entrepreneur who'd been my boyfriend for 3 years and who'd been quietly horrified by how my family treated me. He was willing to fund the startup. Not because he thought it would be profitable, though we both believed it would be, but because he wanted to see if I'd actually allow myself to win at something. "I want you to build something that belongs entirely to you," he'd said when we sat down to discuss the details. "Not a family legacy. Not something you're managing for someone else. Something that's yours." By month 4, we'd signed a lease on a 2,200 square foot space on Southeast Hawthorne. By month 6, we'd designed the menu, hired the chef, trained the staff, and were doing final preparation for opening day. By month 8, we won an industry award for Most Innovative Restaurant Concept and had been featured in Bon Appetit magazine as one of the best new restaurants in Portland. Riviera, that's what we'd named it, was an instant success. And here's what made it particularly stunning: we were operating directly across the street from the flagship Rosewood location. I hadn't done that deliberately. At first. But when I realized the space was available, I'd taken it. The symbolism was too perfect to pass up. My family could literally look out their windows and see what I was building without them. The article came out in the Portland Business Journal on a Thursday morning. "Rising Entrepreneur of the Year, Natalie Foster has transformed the local restaurant scene in just 8 months." The subtitle was even better: "After leaving her family's business, Foster launched Riviera to immediate acclaim." Industry insiders are already comparing her management approach to the most successful restaurant groups in the country. The article detailed everything: my operational innovations at Rosewood, my reasoning for departing, the vision for Riviera, the early success metrics. It was the kind of profile that establishes someone as a serious player in their industry. My mother had called within an hour of the article going live. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice tight with something that might have been anger or might have been panic. It was honestly hard to tell. "You left our family business to open a restaurant across the street? That's aggressive, Natalie. That's not how family handles things." "I left because you chose my sister over me," I'd said calmly. "I didn't leave to be aggressive. I left because staying would have required accepting that my work doesn't matter to you as much as the Stanford diploma matters. I'm building something now where my work is what matters." "This is betrayal," my mother had said. "Your sister is devastated. Claire feels like you're trying to undermine her success." "Claire's success," I'd replied, "is built on my work. My systems are still running those 3 restaurants. My processes are still in place. My staff training programs are still keeping turnover low. She's just the one taking credit for it now. So she'll be fine. We're family." Mom had tried, as though that word was a magic spell that could make me unsee what had happened. "Yes," I'd agreed. "Your family. And family would have believed in me. Family would have recognized what I'd built. Instead, you made a choice, and now you're upset that I'm making different choices." 6 months later, Riviera had been featured in 3 national food publications. 12 months later, I'd opened a second location in Seattle and was in negotiations for a third in Vancouver, British Columbia. 18 months later, I'd been approached by a major restaurant group about acquiring Riviera, an offer that valued the company at $42 million. I declined. I wasn't interested in selling. I was interested in building. Meanwhile, my mother's restaurants had begun to struggle. Not dramatically, they still had loyal customers and solid foundations. But the operational innovations that I'd implemented were aging. New competitors were emerging. Staff retention was becoming a problem without my retention programs being actively managed. The supply chain was less optimized. Essentially, the company was experiencing exactly what would happen when the person who built the systems stops maintaining them. Claire called me. Actually called, not emailed. This took courage or desperation, I wasn't sure which. "Mom's being stupid," she'd said without preamble. "She won't admit that the restaurant needs you. She won't invest in updating the systems. She thinks everything should just work the way it always has. It does take maintenance," I'd acknowledged. "I can't run this place without you," Claire had admitted. "I'm a good manager, but I'm not an operational genius. I never claimed to be. I don't know what's happening to our numbers. I don't know how to fix supply chain problems. I can't do this alone." "Did Mom send you to call me?" I'd asked. "No. She'd be furious if she knew I was calling you. She thinks asking for your help would be admitting defeat." "But Natalie, I'm admitting defeat. I made a mistake. I let myself believe I deserved that promotion more than you did, and I was wrong. You built everything. I just inherited it." I'd been quiet for a long time. "Claire, I believe that you're being genuine. But I'm not coming back. I'm building my own thing now, and I'm succeeding at it because I do and have to prove myself to people who already decided I'm not good enough. It's not that you're not good enough, Claire had protested. It was just that Mom. Mom chose you, I'd interrupted gently. And that's okay. That's her right. It's also my right to build something that doesn't require her validation. The real vindication came 2 years in. Riviera was worth $120 million on the open market. I was 34 years old. I owned 85% of the company. I had a staff of 400 people who were genuinely invested in what we were building. My mother's 3 restaurants were valued at approximately $95 million combined, and that valuation was declining as operational challenges mounted. I was wealthier than my entire family's business. And I'd done it in 2 years, not 2 decades. When the interview request came from the Portland Business Tribune for their 10th annual Who's Leading Portland feature, I'd almost declined. But then I'd reconsidered. The point wasn't to hurt my family. The point was to demonstrate that you don't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary. How did you do it? The interviewer had asked. Riviera wasn't even supposed to work. You were going against an established family business. You had no track record as an independent operator. What made you succeed? I'd thought about that question carefully. I spent 8 years building systems that someone else took credit for, I'd said finally. I watched my work become someone else's achievement. And then I decided that I was going to build something where that couldn't happen. Where my name was on the door. Where my vision was the vision. Where success or failure belonged entirely to me. Do you regret leaving your family business? No, I'd said simply. I regret the reason I had to leave. I regret that my family couldn't see what I was contributing. I regret that my sister was more interested in being chosen than in choosing to do the work herself. But leaving? No. Leaving gave me freedom. My mother tried to reach out again when Riviera was valued at $150 million. This time she didn't call. She came to the restaurant. She sat at a table in the back and waited for me to finish my shift. I made a mistake, she'd said without preamble. I chose Claire because she had the degree, the polish, the connections. And I didn't see what was happening, that you were building something extraordinary every single day, and I was taking it for granted. Yes, I'd agreed. You did make a mistake. I'm sorry. I know, I'd said. But here's the thing, Mom, your apology doesn't change anything. I'm fine now. I'm more than fine. I've built something that belongs to me. And I did that because you didn't believe I could do it. In a weird way, you did me a favor. She'd cried. I'd let her, but I hadn't softened. Because forgiveness wasn't actually what I needed. What I needed was the clarity that my success didn't depend on her ever understanding it. What happens now? She'd asked. Now you go back to your restaurants, and you try to fix what's been broken by lack of attention. Or you don't. Either way, that's your business. Just like mine is mine. She'd nodded slowly. She'd stood to leave, and then she'd turned back. I'm proud of you, she'd said. I should have said that when you were working 80-hour weeks to build our business. I should have said it every single day. But I'm saying it now. I know, I'd replied. But I stopped needing you to be proud of me about 3 years ago. And I meant it.